Well, it's time for another fun gaming video about the law. I really do mean it. That's because Nintendo's patent war has hit critical moments on both sides of the Pacific, where something has happened in Japan, something has happened in America, and both of these events could reshape a lot of Nintendo's strategy. Over in Japan, a key patent application for the Pokemon mechanics just faced judgment from their patent office. And the reason for that decision is Ark Survival Evolved. Then, over in America, a previously granted patent, one that pretty much pissed all of us off, it is now being re-examined. But not just in some boring bureaucratic way, no. The head of the patent office has intervened personally. That's a thing that rarely happens, and his target is Nintendo's patent on Scarlet and Violet's dual combat system. So with this going on, everything is now uncertain. The Nintendo legal team may actually be sweating, but the Palworld lawsuit does still continue, though I would say that now the stakes have just got higher. Here's what you need to know for this video, right? Since last year, there's been a lot of talk over Nintendo versus Palworld. Essentially, Nintendo claims that Palworld infringed on 3 of their patents, and since that case started, we have seen constant activity. Palworld changed mechanics to get ahead of the lawsuit. Nintendo then changed one of their patents to tighten their claims, and it's basically been tit for tat for months. Now, the case itself hasn't progressed in any meaningful way, but outside of the courtroom, the world has been paying attention. Of course, paying attention to Nintendo's patent campaigns. Because if those go bad, it would be good for Palworld and perhaps also good for the industry at large. Now, across the US and Japan, critics are scrutinizing Nintendo's legal tactics like never before. But as we've explained previously, right, and this is a bit of a Western versus Japan kind of difference, many of the big Japanese publishers deploy this strategy, and they have done for years. It is just a part of how they do business, where, yeah, they patent the shit out of everything that they can, and whenever that means they can take someone to court or maybe get a lovely little licensing deal for someone else using those mechanics, well, it lets them recoup some costs from their competitors. Now, our last update in this story covered Nintendo's US patent grant. Critics widely decried it, I would say, rightly so, but today, turns out us all kicking up a stink seems to have delivered. But before we hit that US situation, first, we need to jet off to Japan. Now, if you're like me, you've probably looked at some of the big channels like Johnny Harris or Vox and seen those silky transitions and cinematic B-roll. Well, today's sponsor, Storyblocks, is a big part of how you can actually get that in your own video production. And honestly, it's a bit of kit I wish I had years ago. And here's what it actually is. It's unlimited access to stock video, music, sound effects, and, I think this is the kicker, After Effects templates. And these will let you punch way above your weight class. You know, those smooth map animations, data visualizations, silky clean lower thirds. They're all there and in templates that you can customize rather than build from scratch. But the best thing is it's all in one subscription. You download whatever you need, and basically just think about the sorts of shots that you couldn't normally get. Aerial cityscapes, inside data centers, historical footage, maybe abstract tech visualizations. Kind of things that would normally cost thousands to shoot or license traditionally. But with Storyblocks, you search, download in 4K, and suddenly your explainer has got the production value of a proper documentary. And the licensing is completely clear for YouTube as well, so no copyright strikes or demonetization surprises. It's a tool we've used before, and I know especially with some of the documentary style things I'd love to make, well, I'll be using it again. So whether you're starting out or just trying to level up your production, check it out at storyblocks.com/Ballular, and the link is just down below. Nintendo's Japanese patent program has just faced a crucial decision. It's patent 2024-031879. Rolls off the tongue. So this went before the Japanese Patent Office, and a specialist IP outlet called GamesFrey caught this one. And the patent itself covered the capturing and the battling of monsters and bosses. And here's the huge news. They actually denied the patent. And the reason was a lack of, quote, an inventive step. Now that is essentially patent law speak for too similar to existing mechanics, where basically someone could naturally reach the same conclusion. And the game that was too similar was actually just Ark Survival Evolved. It turned out that the patent office took a look at Ark's paralytic arrows and the capture methods and just found that they were too close to what Nintendo had proposed. But it wasn't just capturing enemies. That's because the details around capturing bosses were also too generic as well. Now, Nintendo filed this patent in spring 2024, shortly after the release of Palworld, and that's when the world's eyebrows collectively went to the sky thinking, well, that's a little bit suspicious. And everyone basically understood that Palworld was a big win. It was a big win that was kind of a spit in Nintendo's face, and this was basically Nintendo trying to claw back ground. Here's what's interesting. Games Frey suspects that Pocketpair actually managed to fight back here. And that's because a third-party submission brought existing mechanics to the patent office's attention. This is where it's interesting. Craftopia, which is a Pocketpair game, and other games appeared in that submission. So because of that, Nintendo has now got to decide what the hell they do next. Basically, they can just walk away from this patent. Or they can approach the patent office and push for a re-review after making some amendments to their wording. Now, this being the Japanese patent story and the lawsuit being in Japan, obviously this will impact the Palworld lawsuit. But we first need to go across the Pacific because a re-review is exactly what's going on, and it's what Nintendo does not want to deal with. In covering this, Games Frey surfaced a second development, and it's that Nintendo's September patent on summoning characters with dual battle systems, which is patent 397, has just seen something really weird, where the US Patent Office took the unusual step of re-examining it, but not in the normal way. Basically, the director, John A. Squires, ordered an ex parte re-examination of the patent. This happens rarely, so rarely that Games Frey say that this is the first re-review that they have tracked in over a decade. So, yeah, angry gamers. Seems it actually worked. Anyway, let's go back to things. So Squires found gaps in the original review of the patent application, and he specifically names two prior patents. One of them, funnily enough, is a 2019 patent that's held by Nintendo themselves for Tora. And then there's a 2002 patent that is filed under Kaname Yabe. And what matters with this is that the US Patent Office has already granted both of these patents, and they're both patents that describe systems where players direct characters manually or let them operate automatically. That is, of course, key to patent 397. Now, neither is exactly the same as 397, but they could fall under, quote, missing an inventive step. If that inventive step is not there, then, well, it would be bad news for Nintendo. Though that's actually not the only angle, because these could be seen as being prior art, of course, that the Patent Office should have considered. So, the office is now going to re-review patent 397 against these prior ones, and that is a problem for Nintendo. So now they've got 2 months to respond. And what's good here is that this is a case that we thought, and that they thought, was closed. And what the reopening means is they'll have to deal with new third-party challenges, with new information that was not previously considered or considered under as much scrutiny. As an example, one thing that really just confused everyone is how little comparative art was involved in the initial application review. It was mostly just other patent considerations. So basically, this is overall good news. And in terms of material actions, it means that, just like in Japan, someone can now present previous games as evidence. But what if I told you there was something really bizarre about this? And the way in which it's bizarre may actually clue us into why the hell the stupid patent was granted in the first place. So, this all goes against US Patent Office patterns. It goes against basically how they've tended to do things. Now, part of that is because they're absurdly overworked, underfunded, and they are stupidly backlogged. By backlog, I mean 1.2 million patents. So they have 1.2 million patents to deal with, and a freeze in hiring, which basically means they just really do have to plow through stuff as quickly as they can, which has likely meant less scrutiny, and that could be part of the reason why Nintendo originally got the patent. Now, Mr. Squires' solution has just been to take over the patent review board's job for himself.
I am assuming direct control.
Anyway, he recently turned down 13 appeals himself, with no explanation and with no public record as to why. which is absolutely not great for transparency, but it is good for his department's efficiency, and they do have that humongous backlog to deal with. Now, commenters have suggested that this is all part of a wider move to stop companies from slowing down the patent process with appeals. Basically, that he can kind of go in and smash the thing up. But what it also makes Nintendo is quite an outlier, and it may actually be that a year's worth of negative press has helped move the needle here. So, in review, we've got two major setbacks. In Japan, they have been denied, and in America, they're under review. The obvious question then is, what does this actually mean for the wider patent war? This whole saga started off because of Nintendo's Palworld lawsuit in Japan. The big question then is, how does this actually impact the case? And the immediate answer is, it will not impact the case directly, but it absolutely could influence it. And I'll start off with the stuff in the US. So Nintendo is simply just trying to build up their patent portfolio in the US. I mean, the idea that their own 2019 patent and a 23-year-old Konami patent might undermine them is kind of absurd. Perhaps very absurd, but that won't really impact their ongoing legal cases. It's basically just a public loss for Nintendo, or at least a road bump, but if anything, it will make Nintendo more careful about their US patent filings because they obviously won't want this to happen again. But what is different is the Japanese situation, albeit in a little bit of a complicated way. So, the denied patent that we've talked about today in Japan is actually not one of the 3 patents that Nintendo is using against Pocketpair. You might be wondering, okay, well, how could it impact the case? Well, because it's actually related to 2 of the patents that Nintendo are using in the case. Now, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company's 3 patents used in that case have all been granted by the Japanese Patent Office, and they're not currently under a review process like Patent 397 is over in America, but they soon could be, and you'll understand why whenever I kind of walk you through the connection here. One of those granted patents, one of the 3 being used in the case, is actually derived from today's denied patent. Basically, it built on the same denied patent to create something new. And since the Japanese Patent Office denied the foundational patent, well, this actually does create an opening. And it means that the judge in the Palworld case can now question whether that derived patent should have been granted at all. So what that means is, not that Nintendo will lose, but it does mean that there is now a strong avenue for Pocketpair to push, and it means that Nintendo's case has just got a lot more complicated. In theory, at least in Japan, this is the system working as intended, right? Where Nintendo attempt to patent a thing from their game, challengers then bring in evidence from other art, and then Nintendo cannot secure their patent. In a system that is not being gutted by executive oversight, unlike over in the US, that's how things should work, and that's, I suppose, why there's good news over in Japan. As for the US situation, well, a patent argued to be inappropriate is now facing re-examination. But how we got there is extremely messy, because it is effectively a civil servant consolidating their power and eliminating transparency, denying due process to the claimants involved. That is a risky thing, even just in terms of legitimacy, but I guess what's odd is that in this case, that consolidated power has actually produced more oversight instead of less, because the US Patent Office has basically been kind of screwed with a humongous backlog and hiring freeze. Now, the story is ultimately not over here. The court decisions that will, well, matter the most are actually still months away, and any kind of resolution is further out again. But I think today has actually marked something. It's a loss for Nintendo in Japan and a major roadblock in the US. We're seeing their patent strategy have cracks on both sides of the Pacific. I personally think a lot of what's going on with patents in games is a great corporate strategy, but not exactly great for games as an art form. So ultimately, I think this one is actually a win. And you know what? What I will do is leave you with something, a neat little game called Escape from Duck-Off that's on absolutely goddamn huge numbers. It's exploded in Steam, even though most people in the West wouldn't even know about it, even though they probably would like it. And you can find all about that in this video next.